Chicago's public school teachers voted yesterday to go on strike. Even before the decision to strike was formalized, Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Chicago Public Schools CEO Janice Jackson announced that all public school classes today would be canceled in anticipation of the forthcoming picketing. But schools will remain open so that students have a safe place to go during the day. CPS says that by the end of a new 5-year contract, teachers will make an average of $100,000, a 35% increase, according to information from the Illinois State Board of Education. However, sources close to Rising say that the offer has not been provided to the teachers union in writing.
Joining us now to discuss all of this and more is the writer Eric Blanc. He's the author of Red State Revolt, The Teacher Strike Wave and Working Class Politics. He joins us live via Skype. Eric, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So Eric, just give us a little bit of a breakdown for any of the viewers that don't understand what's happening here. What is the strike and the demands of the teachers with the Chicago Public School District?
Yeah, the basic thing is that over 30,000 school workers, not just teachers, but also custodians, other support staff are striking today. The mayor, Lightfoot, wants to make it seem like she already gave them what they wanted. She's making it seem like it's just about teacher pay raise. But really, the crucial issues that are at stake are lower class sizes, more funding to make the schools really supportive of the students that need more services, better pay for the school workers, not necessarily the teachers, also teachers, but really a lot of workers at the schools are making poverty wages. So really across the board, the demand is for the schools that Chicago students deserve and to make Lori Lightfoot put the promises that she put into the public during the electoral campaign into writing. She's saying she supports the union and the teachers, but really at this point, it's mostly still words.
And Eric, why does it matter that the support staff is involved here as well?
Yeah, well, a lot of times when the media's talked about these strikes, the assumption is that it's only teachers that make a school run. But as anybody who's ever worked in a school knows, that's not true. And so really part of the power of this strike right now is that it's not just the teachers going alone, but it's all of the school workers. So the schools are completely shut down. There's not going to be any work happening, and there's not going to be any education happening. And so when we looked at the other strikes that have happened across the country, really the most powerful actions that have taken place have been when it's all workers in a given school really shutting down the whole system. And so that's what we see in Chicago, and it means that the strike really has a lot more power than it might otherwise.
So, Eric, what is Mayor Lightfoot's response to this, I guess? I mean, like, she says that she's giving in, or at the very least, why does she say that she can't give lower class sizes or increase funding? Does she even have the power to do that?
Yeah. You know, the typical story is pleading poverty. And again, this is what the mayor, unfortunately, is doing. She ran on a progressive platform in education, and there's actually $1 billion more in yearly funding for Chicago public schools. Yet, nevertheless, she's saying there's just not enough money to go around. The unions have documented that that's not true, and they've really shown exactly where the money could come from to grant their demands. But she's playing hardball in her negotiating team, which is really a continuity of the negotiating team from Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor, is playing hardball. And so at this point, it's a question of political priorities, not economic feasibility. The money's there, but it's a question of political will, and it's a question of political power to see whether the educators can force the city to grant the money.
Yeah. And Eric, you're on the ground there in Chicago. What kind of solidarity are you seeing from other labor unions outside of the school system?
Yeah, it's really remarkable. The Chicago Teachers Union struck in 2012. It's worth keeping in mind. And really ever since has been at the forefront of a broad working class movement, not just for teachers, but really for working people across the city. So you can understand that solidarity is being reciprocated everywhere in Chicago today. You see unions across the board coming out to picket lines with food, coming up with their members. There's going to be a mass rally today, and we're expecting a lot of workers, not just in the schools, to show up. So yeah, it's been pretty remarkable to be at the picket lines this morning.
So Eric, just lay this out for the viewers. How does this connect to a broader movement across the country, or does it connect to a broader movement across the country?
Yeah, we're in the midst of the largest education strike wave in the history of the United States. That's a really big deal. The strike was abandoned by the labor movement for decades. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why our side has been declining, why we've been losing. And so really beginning in 2012 with the Chicago strike, but then above all, since West Virginia erupted in 2018, we're seeing a wave of strike action by educators across the country, and it's shaping the narrative publicly around what is happening with the crisis of our schools. Teachers have made it clear that the reason the schools are in the shape they're in is not because of unions. It's not because the public sector is worse than the private sector. We don't need more charters. They're saying what we need is more money. We need better schools, more funded schools, so that we can provide a good education. And that's put a real challenge, I think, to the Democratic Party, which, to be honest, has been on the wrong side of this issue for years now. And it's put it's made a real difference in the discussion. Now even you have corporate Democrats pretending like they're on the side of teachers. Cory Booker, for instance, who was like privatizer in chief in Newark, you might have heard him at the debate saying he's in favor of unions and he's come out in favor of public schools. So there's definitely been a shift in the narrative. The question is now whether the Democrats can be forced to do the right thing in practice.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, you and I were both on the ground during the West Virginia teachers' strike, which was an unbelievable thing to witness because you had all these sort of moderately political or completely non-political, mostly sort of, middle class, working class women who took this incredibly militant action. I mean, they technically said that this strike was illegal. They did it anyway. They shut down every single public school in the entire state. Many of these women voted for Donald Trump, by the way. So it was also a nonpartisan or cross-partisan movement as well. What has brought teachers to this point? Why now is this happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the basic background is that really, you've had years and decades of attacks undermining the public sector in general and schools. So this is really reflective of a broader societal problem in this country, which is just the prioritization of profits over a robust public sector. But I think one of the reasons why you see the strikes in schools is that, you still have a layer of militant teachers in a lot of these places. You have a union movement still. As weak as it is in a lot of schools, you do have unions that teachers have been able to lean on and transform and push, which isn't the case for a lot of workers across the country. And I think part of the nature of teaching also gives educators a leverage that a lot of other workers don't feel right now. Because of their organic connections to parents and students, they were able in West Virginia, Arizona, Oklahoma, and now in Chicago to take that risk of shutting down schools because they knew the parents, they knew the students, and they knew that if they went out, they would have the support from the people that they work with, day in and day out.
And Eric, as you pointed out, largest wave of strikes among educators in American history. Why has it not been covered that way by the media?
Well, I don't really think it's that surprising. The media doesn't want working people to know how to fight back and that other people are fighting back, right? So this is really a major historic development, the return of the strike to the U.S. political scene. And obviously the corporate media is going to do everything possible to minimize or ignore that. So, the exciting thing is at this point, despite that, the strikes are continuing to spread. The media is not talking about it, but that didn't stop West Virginia from spreading to Arizona and Oklahoma. It didn't stop UTLA, the teachers union in Los Angeles, from striking. So I think that, to be honest, the corporate media's impact is real, but the word of the strike has spread. Social media's played a big role. People see these viral videos of striking teachers on the picket line, singing, dancing. People want to know how to fight back, and they're going to find out what's going on one way or the other.
Yeah, having spent time in both West Virginia and Kentucky during their movement, I can tell you that the Kentucky teachers were very much inspired by what they saw going on in West Virginia, so that connection is very real. Eric, thank you so much, and keep us updated.
Eric. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Next on Rising, we're joined by a former CIA spy who spent most of her time looking for weapons of mass destruction.
And she'll tell us what keeps her up at night when Rising continues.